Lauren Daigle, one of the biggest Christian artists of the last few years. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us on The Breakfast Show on Star.
Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate it.
Now, Lauren, performance, it's much more about, just getting on stage and singing. You need to connect with the audience. You need to convey emotion. That X factor, I guess, that a lot of people talk about. What's it like for you on stage when you really feel that you and the audience have got a strong connection?
Oh, the second I feel that the audience and I have a strong connection, I am completely free. It's like the epitome of feeling like you're flying. I don't know how to explain it, but I'm able to make jokes. I talk way too long. I find myself like, oh, wait, this audience and me, we're like good old friends. Just pull up a chair. I'm going to sit here and have a cup of coffee with you and tell you my whole life story. I'll never forget would be times where I'd go on stage and 2.5 hours would pass and my team would be like, get off stage. People need to go home. But I would just be sitting there talking and talking. And so, yeah, the second that connection is made, I feel like the sky's the limit. You never know what you're going to get.
Now,
Feels like flying.
that's on the big stage and, the big performances you do. But I've seen clips of you also in prisons and obviously no big lights, no big sound systems. It's just you and the prisoners often sitting outside. What's it like, doing how do you find that sort of environment?
Oh, people always ask, where's your favorite place you've ever sang before? And I always say it's not going to be what you think. But Statesville was it's a prison outside of Chicago. It's a maximum security prison. I've sang there. I've sang in San Quentin in California. I've done Folsom Prison, the women's prison, several prisons. And the thing about it is when you can see the joy that touches people's faces that you would never imagine, and the freedom that comes over these people in a way that you'd never imagine, it's completely life-changing. It's like nothing I can explain from a on stage, big stage performance. It's so deep, it's so rich. I'll never forget this one time there was this person sitting in the back of the prison in Statesville, and he was in a wheelchair, and they brought him in, and I could just see his face kind of staring. And by the end of it, his hands were raised in the air, like this act of surrender.
Wow.
And he pulled one of the guards aside and he said, I was going to commit suicide this week, which is very common. And he said, but I feel some sort of hope. I feel like new hope. Like I'm going to not do that. And just those moments of being with people who don't have the luxuries that we do. They don't have the same freedoms as we do, but they have found true freedom within. It is something I can't even explain. It's beautiful.
What do you think, Lauren, is the secret of your connection, ability to connect with people, your audience?
Oh, I feel like it's an amalgamation of many things. One, my faith, where I come from, my family. I think those are all components. Like when I think about who Jesus was, I always think of him as the person who was with, W-I-T-H. He was always with someone, whether it was with the woman at the well, whether it was with Zacchaeus, whether it was with, like, you can name many people, right? He didn't look at people with judgment and ridicule. He was actually just in the act of being with. And to me, a lot of times we can try to get to the end result. We can try to jump ahead. But if you just simply sit in the act of being with someone, it's very transformative. It's transformative for not only the other person, but for yourself. And I think that deep connection is based out of that. It's also based out of the love that I've experienced. I want to be able to share that love with every person that I can come in contact with.
Great. Lauren, you've known some tough times yourself. I mean, as a 15-year-old, you had quite a serious immune disease. You had to be home for a couple of years on your own. Now, for a bubbly people person, I imagine that was pretty tough. And your
Oh,
mum,
yeah.
she sort of came into the situation, but good things came out of it. In fact, in some ways, that sort of was the launching of your whole singing career. Can you tell us about it?
Absolutely. So it was this illness called cytomegalovirus. It's the thing about it is it's not that it's uncommon, like people get it. It's just the way that my body responded to it was a very extreme case. So I was placed on homebound for 2 years. And in that process, I remember feeling the weight of isolation. We've all felt the weight of isolation, because of what's happened a couple of years ago. But I was isolated alone. Like the whole world didn't shut down. The whole world was moving a million miles an hour, but I was still. And that's not uncommon. There's a lot of people with a very similar story, but for me, I loved being with people, and I always dreamt of the way that my high school years would look. And once I was taken out of high school, I never got to go back and finish with all of my friends. And my mom in that season, she became my best friend. Like she was the person I'd talk to about everything. She was the person who I could lean on, the shoulder I could cry on. Just very formative for me in those years and in that environment. But in the process, I found this relationship with God that I had never known before. And I would have like these pictures that would come into my mind. And they were so real, like whether I was brushing my teeth or driving in the car or whatever. It's like whatever was in front of me would become this scene. And I could see tour buses, I could see charts, I could see stages, I could see people's faces. And I just remember thinking, wow, God, am I going crazy? Is this cabin fever, or are you trying to show me something?
Wow.
Now, hindsight's 2020. I mean, I'm on this side. Clearly, he was trying to show me something. But it deepened my faith in a way that was absolutely revolutionary for me at the time.
Wonderful. We better get onto your new album. I mean, this is
Oh, yay!
the song. Thank God I Do. We've started playing that. Tell us about the song. What the background to that song.
Okay, so Thank God I Do was written in the midst of COVID. Kind of, I developed panic attacks and anxiety and things I'd never really related to before. I didn't necessarily know the weight of it. And I remember this one particular night where I was completely overcome. I had two people, my mom and a dear friend, stay awake with me through the night. And that was such a representation of Jesus to me in the midst of, your fears. Perfect love casts out fear. Like he showed me himself through these people that were with me. And from that, a couple weeks later, it was kind of this cathartic moment of talking to one of the songwriters who had experienced a loved one who deals with anxiety and things like that. And we decided to write for that person, like the person who is struggling with panic, the person who's struggling with anxiety, the person who is staying awake through the night. Like, how do we enter their story and give them elements of hope, just as those people who are surrounding me gave me hope as well? So that's what the song is all about.
Great. One more question. I mean, the song You Say was such a huge hit for you. I mean, it just took off not only in Christian circles, but in secular circles as well. Just reading some of the lines, the first couple of lines from it, I keep fighting voices in my mind that say I'm not enough. Every single lie that tells me I never measure up. How do you keep those thoughts at bay? How do you, when you have thoughts of, I'm not good enough, I've messed up, I'm a fraud. How do you keep those thoughts at bay?
The thing that always gets me back on track is purpose. If I can have purpose in the forefront of my mind, why am I doing what I do? Who am I trying to interact with? What messages am I trying to give? You find quickly that your inadequacies start to fall by the wayside because there's this Bible verse that says, man may choose his path, but the Lord directs his steps, and those he calls, he equips. And so I'm like, okay, God, this is the path that's been laid before me. So I'm going to trust that you are going to equip me for this. And when I remind myself of that truth, that it isn't about me, it's about the purpose, some of those insecurities and those voices begin to quiet.
Great, that's wonderful. I think we've just about run out of time, but Laurel, it's been absolutely wonderful talking to you. As I've prepared for this, I just so many aspects of your life and your faith, and just your bubbly nature, your love of people, the enthusiasm that you bring. But on top of that, your voice is just so amazing, and the emotion that you can put into your songs, the feeling that you put in, it's just wonderful. So thank you very much for having such a big impact on so many people.
Wow. Thank you, Peter. That's so kind. I take those words to heart. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Blessings.